The power of silence. Most people lose their power the moment they speak. They explain, they defend, they react, and in doing so, they hand over control. This audiobook is about one truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline. When you control your words, you control your emotions. When you control your emotions, you control yourself. Silence keeps your mind sharp. Silence keeps your energy intact. Silence makes you dangerous because you act instead of react. In the next hour, you will learn how to stop leaking power through emotion, stop proving yourself through noise, and start building quiet, unshakable self-control. Listen closely, because mastery begins when the noise ends. Chapter 1. Stop reacting and start observing. Most people are not living their lives. They are reacting to them. Someone speaks and they snap back. Something happens and they explode. A situation shifts and they panic. That is not strength. That is not confidence. That is emotional weakness. Reacting means you are being controlled. Controlled by words. Controlled by moods. Controlled by pressure. And here's the hard truth. If someone can trigger you, they can control you. That's the key. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their approval to pause. You don't need their reaction to validate yours. You have a choice. Reacting feels natural because it's fast, but fast is not smart. Fast is emotional. Fast is careless. Observing is different. Observing is quiet. Observing is slow. Observing is powerful. When you observe, you step back. You watch instead of jump. You listen instead of interrupt. You think instead of explode. And in that moment, that tiny moment, power is born. Because silence creates space. Space between what happens and what you do next. That space is everything. Most people never enter that space. They live trapped between stimulus and reaction. No pause. No control. No awareness. Something happens. Emotion rises. Mouth opens. Damage is done. And then regret follows. You felt it before. That message you sent too quickly. That argument you escalated. That decision you made while emotional. All avoidable. All preventable. All caused by one thing. Reacting instead of observing. You have a choice. Observation is a discipline. It is trained, not gifted. It is practiced, not inherited. You don't suddenly become calm. You train calm. You do it by pausing, by breathing, by saying nothing when your ego begs to speak. That's the work. Silence is not empty. Silence is loaded. Silence gives you information. Silence shows you patterns. Silence exposes intentions. When you observe, people reveal themselves. When you react, you reveal yourself. That's the key. Think about it. The person who reacts emotionally is predictable, easy to manipulate, easy to provoke. But the person who observes, they are unreadable. They are grounded. They are dangerous in the best way because they choose when to speak. They choose when to move. They choose when to act. You have a choice. Let's be clear. Observing does not mean tolerating nonsense. It does not mean being passive. It does not mean being weak. It means you delay your response until it serves you. You don't argue to prove a point. You don't explain to feel accepted. You don't react to feel powerful. You wait. You watch. You decide. That's discipline, and discipline always beats emotion. Here's what reacting steals from you. It steals your credibility. It steals your clarity. It steals your leverage. When you react emotionally, you show your hand. You expose your triggers. You give people a roadmap to control you. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need their validation to remain silent. You don't need to win every moment. You have a choice. Observation changes your internal world first, then your external world follows. When you pause, your heartbeat slows. When your heartbeat slows, your mind clears. When your mind clears, your decisions improve. This is not philosophy. This is physiology. Calm thinking produces strong outcomes, Emotional thinking produces chaos. That's the key. You must start training the pause. Not later, not tomorrow, now. The next time something triggers you, pause. The next time you feel disrespected, pause. The next time your ego wants to speak, pause. Say nothing. Breathe. Observe. Say it in your mind if you need to. I observe first. I respond last. Again. I observe first. I respond last. Repetition builds discipline. Discipline builds control. People will test you when you stop reacting. They will poke. They will provoke. They will try to pull you back into old patterns. That's normal. When you stop reacting, insecure people feel exposed. When you stay silent, emotional people feel uncomfortable. When you pause, impulsive people feel threatened. Let them. You don't need their permission to evolve. You have a choice. Understand this. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every challenge deserves your energy. Not every situation deserves your emotion. Your energy is limited. Your focus is valuable. Your attention is currency. Spend it intentionally. That's the key. Observation turns conflict into information, pressure into data, emotion into insight. You begin to notice tone, body language, timing. You see who talks too much, who panics under pressure, who loses control when challenged, and because you are silent, you are learning. Knowledge is power, but only if you're quiet enough to gather it. This chapter is not about becoming cold, it's about becoming centered. Because centered people are hard to shake, hard to manipulate, hard to defeat, because they are not ruled by emotion, they are guided by awareness. You have a choice. So here is your first discipline. Stop reacting. Start observing. Pause before you speak. Pause before you act. Pause before you decide. Power lives in the pause. Say it again. I observe first. I respond last. That is your foundation. And once you master this, something changes. You realize that silence itself is strength. That quiet unsettles others. That restraint creates authority. That's where we're going next. Because in the next chapter, you'll learn this truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. And once you understand that, you stop giving your power away. Chapter 3. Control your mouth to control your emotions. Your mouth is not just for communication. It is a trigger, a weapon, a leak. Every time you speak without discipline, emotion escapes. Every time emotion escapes, control is lost. That's the key. Most people think emotions come first and words come after. That's wrong. Words fuel emotions. Words intensify feelings. Words keep fires burning that should have died in silence. Fewer words mean fewer emotional fires. You have a choice. Think about the last time you were angry. What made it worse? Not the situation, not the person. Your words. You talked yourself into rage. You explained yourself into frustration. You argued yourself into exhaustion. Speaking didn't calm you. It escalated you. That's the pattern. When you speak emotionally, your body listens. Your heart rate rises. Your breathing tightens. Your judgment disappears. Words don't just express emotion. They lock it in. The more you talk, the longer the emotion stays alive. That's the key. Strong people understand this. They don't say everything they feel. They don't verbalize every thought. They don't give emotions a microphone. Weak discipline sounds like this. I just had to say something. I needed to get it off my chest. I couldn't keep quiet. That's not honesty. That's lack of control. You don't need their permission to stay quiet. You don't need to express everything to be authentic. You have a choice. Discipline starts with restraint, not motivation, not confidence. Restraint, the ability to stop yourself mid-thought, mid-sentence, mid-urge. That pause is strength. That pause is mastery. And the most regret comes from one thing, speaking too soon. You send the message you can't unsend. You say the sentence you can't take back. You explain something that didn't need explaining. And once it's out, it's out. Silence would have protected you. That's the key. Speaking less reduces conflict because most conflicts are verbal. They escalate through words, not actions. Arguments don't grow in silence. They grow in back and forth. They grow in ego. They grow in emotional language. When you remove words, you remove fuel. Fire dies without fuel. You don't need to win every conversation. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to respond to every comment. You have a choice, and that choice is restraint. Here is a hard truth most people avoid. Not every thought deserves a voice. Some thoughts are emotional noise. Some thoughts are ego reactions. Some thoughts are temporary storms. If you speak them, you make them permanent. Say it now. Not every thought deserves a voice. Again, not every thought deserves a voice. That phrase is discipline in sentence form. Your mouth is the gatekeeper of your inner world. If the gate is always open, chaos enters and exits freely. If the gate is guarded, order is maintained. Guard your mouth, not with fear, with intention. Notice this. The calmest people speak the least. The most emotional people speak the most. That is not coincidence. Emotional people talk to regulate themselves. Disciplined people regulate internally. That's the key. You must stop narrating your emotions. Stop giving play-by-play commentary on how you feel. And stop announcing frustration, anger, disappointment. Feel it, process it, but don't feed it with words. Silence shortens emotional lifespan. Speech extends it. Think of emotions like waves. If you speak during the wave, it grows. If you stay silent, it passes. Most people drown because they keep talking while the wave is crashing. You don't need their permission to ride it out quietly. You have a choice. This is where real transformation happens. Not in what you say, in what you refuse to say, refuse to complain, refuse to explain, refuse to argue emotionally. That refusal builds discipline. Your mouth also shapes your identity. If you speak like a victim, you feel like one. If you speak like you're under attack, your body believes it. If you speak calmly, your nervous system follows. Words program the mind. Choose them carefully, or choose silence. That's the key. Let's be clear. This is not about becoming mute. This is about becoming selective. Speak when it matters. Speak when it moves you forward. Speak when it aligns with who you're becoming. Silence everything else. Here's a practice. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is this necessary? Is this timely? Is this disciplined? If the answer is no, don't speak. You don't owe anyone immediate access to your thoughts. You don't need their permission to pause. Most people feel powerful when they talk. Disciplined people feel powerful when they don't, because they know something others don't. Silence keeps leverage. Silence keeps options open. Silence keeps control. That's the key. Say it again, slowly. Not every thought deserves a voice. Let that sentence interrupt you. Let it stop you mid-reaction. Let it become automatic. Repetition builds habits. Habits build character. This chapter is about closing the mouth to calm the mind, because once you control your words, emotions lose their grip. Once emotions lose their grip, clarity returns. And with clarity comes something important. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying. You stop defending. You stop wasting energy on people who are never listening. That's where we go next. Because in the next chapter, you will learn this hard truth. Stop explaining yourself to unqualified opinions. And once you master that, your power stays intact. Chapter 4. Stop explaining yourself to unqualified opinions. Most people waste their lives explaining themselves, explaining their choices, explaining their goals, explaining their mistakes, explaining their growth, and every explanation costs them power. That's the key. Explaining yourself is rarely about clarity. It's about approval. It's about wanting to be understood. It's about hoping someone else will agree. But here's the truth. Most people avoid. People who doubt you don't need explanations, they need results. You have a choice. Let's be honest. When you explain yourself too much, you are negotiating your worth. You are asking for permission to be who you already are. You are trying to convince people who have no authority over your life. You don't need their permission. Say that again in your mind. You don't need their permission. Unqualified opinions are everywhere. People who haven't built what you're building. People who haven't risked what you're risking. People who haven't disciplined themselves the way you're trying to, yet they feel entitled to question you, to doubt you, to analyze your moves, and you respond by explaining. That's backwards. That's the key. Every explanation hands away leverage. Every justification lowers your position. Every defense signals insecurity. Strong people don't defend their vision, they pursue it. Weak people argue, strong people execute. You have a choice. Ask yourself this simple question before you explain anything. Did this person earn an explanation? Did they invest in you? Did they build something similar? Did they prove wisdom through action? If not, silence. You don't owe clarity to confusion. You don't owe explanations to doubt. You don't owe access to everyone. Most explanations are emotional reactions disguised as logic. You feel challenged. You feel misunderstood. You feel judged. So you talk. And the more you talk, the more emotional you become. The more emotional you become, the weaker your position gets. That's the trap. People who question you while doing nothing are not curious. They are insecure. They are projecting their fear onto your movement. Explaining yourself won't fix that. It feeds it. That's the key. Let's be clear. This is not about arrogance. This is about boundaries. Boundaries protect energy. Energy builds momentum. Momentum creates results. Results end conversations. When your results show up, explanations disappear. When progress is visible, doubt goes quiet. When consistency speaks, opinions lose value. Results speak louder than arguments, always. Think about how much time you've lost trying to be understood. Time explaining your goals. Time defending your decisions. Time responding to skeptics. That time could have been used building, learning, executing. You have a choice. Here's a hard truth. Some people will never understand you, and that's fine. Understanding is not required for success. Approval is not required for growth. Agreement is not required for progress. You don't need their permission. That's the key. Explaining yourself keeps you stuck in conversation. Execution moves you forward. Conversation feels productive. Execution creates outcomes. One feeds the ego. The other builds the future. Choose wisely. Strong minds simplify their responses. They don't debate their direction. They don't justify their discipline. They don't argue their ambition. They nod. They smile. They keep moving. Silence plus action is intimidating. Notice this pattern. The more successful someone becomes, the less they explain. The less successful someone is, the more they talk. That is not coincidence. Talking is cheap. Results are expensive. That's the key. You must train yourself to resist the urge to explain. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Your ego will itch. Your mind will scream, "They don't get it." Let them not get it. Your job is not to be understood. Your job is to be disciplined. You have a choice. When someone questions your path, don't rush to respond. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. Silence is an answer. Progress is a reply. Consistency is a statement. Repeat this until it settles in your bones. I don't explain. I execute. Again. I don't explain. I execute. Say it when doubt shows up. Say it when criticism appears. Say it when someone demands justification. Repetition builds identity. Explanations are emotional labor. Execution is discipline labor. One drains you, the other strengthens you. That's the key. This chapter is about reclaiming your authority. authority over your time, authority over your energy, authority over your direction. Stop seeking permission through explanation. Start building evidence through action. You don't need their permission to move forward. You never did. You have a choice. Oh, so from this point on, let this be your rule. Less explaining, more executing, less defending, more building, less talking, more doing. Because once you stop explaining yourself, something powerful happens. Your calm increases, your focus sharpens, your discipline deepens. And that leads us to the next truth. Because when you stop explaining, you must learn to stay calm consistently, not sometimes, not when it's easy, daily. In the next chapter, you will learn this. Calm is a skill you must train daily. That's where emotional mastery becomes permanent. Chapter 5. Calm is a skill you must train. Daily, most people think calm is something you're born with. They say, that's just who I am. They blame personality. They blame temperament. They blame stress. That's a lie. Calm is not personality. Calm is practice. That's the key. If calm were personality, it wouldn't disappear under pressure. If calm were personality, stress wouldn't shake it. If calm were personality, everyone would keep it when challenged. But they don't, because calm is trained, or it's lost. You have a choice. When pressure hits, your nervous system reacts before your mind does. Heart rate increases, breath shortens, muscles tense. That reaction is automatic. But what comes after is a skill. You can fuel the chaos, or you can slow it down. Silence stabilizes your nervous system. That's not motivation talk. That's biology. When you stop speaking, your breathing deepens. When your breathing deepens, your heart rate drops. When your heart rate drops, your thinking clears. Silence interrupts stress loops. That's the key. Most people talk when they're anxious. They fill space. They fidget verbally. They explain themselves into exhaustion. Talking feels like control. It's not. Calm people reduce input. They lower stimulation. They create stillness. Stillness is trained. You don't stay calm. You practice calm daily, intentionally, repetitively, just like a muscle. If you don't train it, it weakens. If you train it, it strengthens. You have a choice. Think about how you train your body. You don't wait until a crisis to exercise. You don't lift weights only when challenged. You train before the test. Calm works the same way. If you only try to be calm when things explode, you've already lost. That's the key. Training calm happens in small moments, in traffic, in conversations, in delays, in disagreement. Moments when your ego wants to react. That's your training ground. Silence is your primary tool. Not avoidance, not suppression. Silence. When you go silent, your nervous system gets the message. There is no immediate danger, and your body listens. Most emotional reactions are false alarms. The body thinks it's under attack. The mind panics. Words rush out. Silence corrects the signal. That's the key. Emotional control is built through repetition, not through understanding, not through insight, through repetition. You pause once, then again, then again. At first it's uncomfortable, then it becomes familiar, then it becomes automatic. You have a choice. Say this out loud in your mind. Calm is my trained response. Again. Calm is my trained response. Say it when pressure rises. Say it when tension appears. Say it when silence feels awkward. Repetition wires behavior. People think calm means you don't care. Wrong. Calm means you care strategically. You choose clarity over chaos. You choose control over impulse. You choose long-term over short-term relief. That's strength. Calm doesn't remove emotion. It contains it. It gives emotion structure, boundaries, limits. Without calm, emotion runs wild. With calm, emotion becomes useful. That's the key. Notice this. The more chaotic your environment, the more valuable calm becomes. The louder the room, the more powerful silence is. The more pressure you face, the more discipline you need. Calm scales with responsibility. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need approval to breathe. You don't need validation to pause. You have a choice. Calm also protects your energy. Emotional reactions are exhausting. They drain you. They scatter focus. They leave residue. Calm conserves energy, and conserved energy compounds. Most people burn out not from work, but from emotional friction, unnecessary reactions, unnecessary conversations, unnecessary tension. Calm eliminates friction. That's the key. Training calm means building routines that support it: sleep, breathing, silence, reflection. You don't drift into calm, you design for it. You must also stop romanticizing intensity. Intensity feels powerful, it feels productive, it feels strong. But intensity without control is instability. Calm is sustainable power. Here's a simple daily practice. When something irritates you, don't speak immediately. Count 5 breaths. Say nothing. That's it. That small pause rewires your response system. Do it once, it helps. Do it daily, it transforms. You have a choice. Calm people are not lucky. They are trained. They've practiced restraint. They've endured silence. They've resisted reaction. And now calm shows up for them automatically. That's the goal. This chapter is about taking responsibility for your emotional state, not blaming stress, not blaming people, not blaming circumstances. Responsibility creates power. Power creates calm. Say it again and mean it. Calm is my trained response. Let that sentence guide your behavior. Let it interrupt your impulses. Let it become your default. Because once calm is trained, something changes. You stop being controlled by the moment. You stop being pulled into chaos. You start seeing clearly. And when you see clearly, you can think strategically. That's where we go next. Because calm is not the end. Calm is the doorway. In the next chapter, you will learn how to use calm to think beyond emotion. Next, you will master this truth. Detach emotionally and think strategically. That's when discipline becomes dominance. Chapter 6. Detach emotionally and think strategically. Emotion is loud. Emotion is urgent. Emotion demands action now. Strategy is quiet. Strategy is patient. Strategy waits. That's the difference. Emotion clouds judgment. Silence clears it. That's the key. Most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they decide while emotional. They speak while triggered. They move while angry, excited, afraid, or desperate. And emotion is a terrible advisor. You have a choice. Emotional attachment narrows your vision. It traps you in the moment. It makes everything feel personal. Strategy pulls you back. It widens your view. It asks better questions. What matters after this moment? What are the consequences? What is the long game? Emotional minds don't ask those questions. Strategic minds do. That's the key. Well, detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you care correctly. You don't let emotion drive the wheel. You put it in the passenger seat. You observe how you feel. You don't obey how you feel. That distinction changes everything. Most people confuse emotion with truth. They say, this feels right, or this feels wrong. Feeling is not fact. Feeling is data, and data must be interpreted, not obeyed. You have a choice. Detachment gives you distance. Distance gives you clarity. Clarity gives you options. When you're emotionally attached, you see one option: react, defend, attack, escape. When you're detached, you see many options: delay, redirect, observe, advance quietly. Strategic minds don't rush to speak. That's the key. Think about how many mistakes you've made trying to protect your ego, trying to prove a point, trying to defend your image, trying to win a moment. Short-term satisfaction, long-term cost. Emotion always wants a short-term win. Strategy plays for the long-term outcome. Detachment slows you down, on purpose, not to hesitate, but to choose. Silence is how you detach. When you stop talking, you stop feeding emotion. When you stop feeding emotion, it weakens. When it weakens, thinking returns. That's the key. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need approval to think. You don't need validation to step back. You have a choice. Strategic people don't explain their thinking in real time. They don't announce their intentions. They don't reveal their reactions. They gather information. They assess risk. They wait. Waiting is not indecision. Waiting is positioning. Emotion demands expression. Strategy demands restraint. The emotion wants to be seen. Strategy wants to be effective. You must choose which one leads. Here's a hard truth. If you feel rushed, you are being manipulated by circumstances or by people. Urgency is often a trap. Detach, and urgency loses power. That's the key. When you detach emotionally, you stop taking things personally. Not because nothing matters, but because everything matters too much to react foolishly. You stop seeing attacks. You start seeing patterns. You stop hearing insults. You start hearing insecurity. You stop reacting to words. You start reading motives. That's strategic awareness. Say this to yourself often. I think beyond the moment. Again, I think beyond the moment. Say it when emotion rises. Say it when pressure builds. Say it when silence feels uncomfortable. Repetition creates discipline. As strategic thinking requires time. Emotion hates time. Emotion wants release. Strategy wants results. When you stay silent, you buy time. Time gives you leverage. That's the key. Detachment also protects you from manipulation. Emotional people are easy to steer. Praise them, they inflate. Criticize them, they collapse. Detached people are stable. They don't spike. They don't crash. Stability is power. Most people react to tone. Strategic people listen to content. Most people react to words. Strategic people observe behavior. Most people react to moments. Strategic people plan for outcomes. You have a choice. Detachment allows you to ask one crucial question. What serves my future self? Emotion never asks that. Strategy always does. That question changes decisions. It changes conversations. It changes priorities. You don't detach by force. You detach by practice. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Let the emotional wave pass without acting on it. Every time you do this, you strengthen strategic control. Here's a simple rule. If you are emotional, you are not ready to decide. If you are emotional, you are not ready to speak. Silence until clarity returns. That's the key. Strategic minds don't need to dominate conversations. They don't need to correct every mistake. They don't need to respond to every challenge. They conserve words. They conserve energy. They conserve position. You don't need their permission to step back. Detachment also builds patience, and patience multiplies power. Impatient people reveal themselves. Patient people read the room. Impatient people expose intent. Patient people gather leverage. Say it again. Slowly. I think beyond the moment. Let that sentence pull you out of emotional traps. Let it stop impulsive speech. Let it guide your decisions. This chapter is about elevation, rising above the moment, rising above emotion, rising above reaction. You don't abandon feeling, you master it, and mastery creates strategy. Once you detach emotionally and think strategically, a new discipline becomes possible. You stop chasing attention. You stop announcing effort. You stop explaining movement. You begin to move quietly. That's where real momentum is built. Because in the next chapter, you will learn how to operate without noise. Next, you will master this truth. Move in silence and build quiet discipline. That's when strategy turns into unstoppable action. Chapter 7. Move in silence and build. Quiet discipline. Most people want to be seen before they are ready. They announce plans. They broadcast goals. They seek applause before results. That noise weakens them. That's the key. Real growth happens quietly. Real discipline is built in silence. Real momentum does not ask for attention. Consistency doesn't need applause. You have a choice. When you announce your goals, you get a false reward. Praise replaces progress. Validation replaces effort. Talking replaces doing. And slowly, motivation leaks out. Silent routines don't leak motivation. They compound it. That's the difference. Quiet discipline is what you do when no one is watching. No audience, no recognition, no encouragement, just you and the work. That's where character's forged. That's the key. Most people are disciplined when it's convenient, when energy is high, when motivation is present, when others are watching. That's not discipline, that's performance. Discipline grows strongest when no one is watching. When you move in silence, you remove pressure. No one expects updates. No one judges your pace. No one distracts your focus. Silence gives you freedom. Freedom to adjust. Freedom to fail privately. Freedom to improve without commentary. You don't need their permission to work quietly. Silent routines build unstoppable momentum because they are boring. And boring is sustainable. Flashy habits burn out. Quiet habits endure. That's the key. Momentum is not built by intensity. It's built by repetition. Same time, same place, same effort, over and over. You have a choice. Think about the strongest people you know. Not the loudest, not the most visible, the consistent ones. They don't announce early mornings. They don't post every effort. They don't talk about discipline. They live it. Quiet discipline eliminates comparison. When you're silent, you stop measuring yourself against others. You focus on process, not perception. Comparison feeds ego. Discipline feeds progress. That's the key. Most people quit because they crave recognition. They need to feel seen to keep going. They need praise to stay motivated. Quiet discipline doesn't rely on external fuel. It runs on internal standards. Standards don't need applause. You must learn to enjoy anonymity, to work without witnesses, to improve without announcements. That's maturity. You don't need their permission to grow privately. Here's a hard truth. If people know all your plans, you are already distracted. Noise invites opinions. Opinions invite doubt. Doubt slows momentum. Silence protects momentum. That's the key. Moving in silence does not mean hiding. It means prioritizing results over recognition. It means delaying gratification. It means trusting the process. It means letting progress reveal itself later. Silent routines look small, but small actions repeated daily become massive outcomes. A page a day, a workout a day, a habit a day. Quiet, consistent, relentless. You have a choice. Discipline doesn't feel powerful in the moment. It feels ordinary, unnoticed, repetitive. That's why most people abandon it. But that ordinariness is deceptive because discipline compounds. That's the key. Say this to yourself daily. I work quietly. I grow daily. Again, I work quietly. I grow daily. Say it when no one claps. You say it when progress feels slow. Say it when motivation fades. Repetition anchors identity. Quiet discipline also removes excuses. There's no one to impress, no one to blame, no one to perform for. Just standards. Standards sharpen behavior. When you move in silence, you become unpredictable. People don't see you coming. They don't track your growth. They don't anticipate your results. That's power. Noise reveals intent. Silence conceals progress. Most people talk about consistency. Few live it. Consistency is boring. Consistency is lonely. Consistency is quiet. And consistency wins. That's the key. You don't need the permission to stay focused. You don't need approval to stay disciplined. You don't need recognition to stay committed. You have a choice. Quiet discipline also builds self-trust. Every day you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. Not loud confidence, stable confidence. Confidence rooted in proof. Proof doesn't speak, it shows. This chapter is about removing the audience from your growth, because growth with an audience is fragile. Growth in silence is durable. You don't need cheers to keep going. You need standards. Let others talk. Let others announce. Let others perform. You build. Quietly. Daily. Relentlessly. Say it one last time. I work quietly. I grow daily. Let that guide your habits. Let that shape your routines. Let that define your discipline. Because once you move in silence and build quiet discipline, something inevitable happens. Results arrive. and results change everything. In the next chapter, you will learn how to let those results speak without saying a word. Next, you will master this truth. Let your results speak for you, or that's where silence becomes undeniable authority. Chapter 8. Let your results speak for you. Talking creates pressure. Silence creates freedom. That's the key. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, you create weight, expectation, judgment, deadlines you didn't need. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they talk themselves into pressure. They announce before they build. They promise before they prove. They explain before they execute. And pressure crushes progress. You have a choice. Silence removes pressure. No expectations to meet. No opinions to fight. No timelines to defend. Just work. That's freedom. When you stay quiet, you move at your own pace. You adjust without explanation. You improve without commentary. You don't need their permission to move privately. Results carry authority without effort. They don't argue. They don't convince. Or they don't negotiate. They simply exist. And when results show up, conversations end. That's the key. Think about it. Have you ever argued with proof? Have you ever debated undeniable progress? Have you ever questioned consistency when it's visible? No. Results. Silence doubt better than words ever could. Most people talk because they want to be believed. Disciplined people work until belief is unavoidable. Talking seeks validation. Results demand respect. You have a choice. The quietest person in the room often has the most control because they are not seeking approval, they are not defending an image, they are not reacting to noise, they are grounded in evidence. Evidence creates calm confidence. That's the key. When you let results speak, you stop chasing attention. You stop correcting misconceptions. You stop responding to skepticism. You let time do the talking. Time plus discipline always wins. Talking creates pressure because it locks you in. You feel watched. You feel rushed. You feel judged. Silence keeps you flexible. You can pivot. You can slow down. You can refine. No explanations required. You don't need their permission. Most people want credit early, but credit early is dangerous. It feeds ego before discipline is solid. It replaces hunger with comfort. It makes quitting easier. Results earned quietly are harder to abandon. That's the key. When your results speak, you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to win arguments. You simply continue. And continuation is power. Let's be clear. This is not about secrecy. It's about timing. Speak when it matters. Show when it's real. Until then, work. Most people announce goals to feel accountable, but accountability without discipline is fragile. Self-accountability built in silence is unbreakable. You have a choice. Results also protect your emotional state. When you rely on words, you're exposed. People can challenge you, dismiss you, doubt you. When you rely on results, you're insulated. There is nothing to argue with. That's the key. Silence plus results is intimidating because it shows control, consistency, depth. It shows you are not here to perform. You are here to build. Say this to yourself now. My results do the talking. Again, my results do the talking. Say it when you feel the urge to explain. Say it when you feel misunderstood. Say it when you feel tempted to announce progress. Repetition reinforces discipline. Results don't need storytelling. They don't need context. They don't need justification. They stand alone. And because they stand alone, they elevate you. Here's a hard truth. If you need to convince people you're improving, you probably aren't improving enough yet. That's not an insult. That's feedback. Let it sharpen you. When results are your language, your confidence becomes quiet, stable, grounded. Not emotional confidence, earned confidence. That's the strongest kind. You don't need their permission to stay focused. You don't need approval to delay recognition. You don't need validation to keep building. You have a choice. Results also change how people treat you. Less questioning, less doubting, less noise, more respect, more space, more trust, without you asking. That's the key. This chapter is about removing yourself from unnecessary conversation, because conversation doesn't move the needle. Action does. You don't need to narrate growth. You need to produce it. When you let results speak, you reclaim your energy. No defending, no explaining, no debating, just building. That energy compounds. Say it one more time, slowly. My results do the talking. Let that sentence stop you from overspeaking. Let it redirect you back to work. Let it anchor your focus. Because once your results speak, something shifts. You stop chasing respect, you start receiving it. And that leads to the final discipline, the discipline that separates leaders from followers, the discipline that locks everything in. Because silence, calm, strategy, discipline, and results all point to one thing: self-leadership. And that's where we go next. In the next chapter, you will learn this final truth. Silence separates leaders from followers. Chapter 9. Silence separates leaders from followers. Leadership is not loud. Leadership is not flashy. Leadership is not reactive. Leadership is quiet. That's the key. Followers chase attention. Leaders build control. Followers react to noise. Leaders remain composed. And the line between the two is silence. You have a choice. Most people think leadership looks like talking first, giving opinions quickly, being seen, being heard. That's performance, not leadership. Leadership begins with self-command, and self-command requires silence. Followers live on reaction. They react to trends. They react to opinions. They react to pressure. They move when others move. They speak when others speak. They panic when others panic. Leaders do the opposite. Leaders pause. Leaders observe. Leaders decide deliberately. That's the key. Silence sharpens decision making because it removes emotional clutter. When you're quiet, you hear more. When you hear more, you see more. When you see more, you decide better. Noise blinds judgment. Silence refines it. Leaders don't chase attention because attention is expensive. It costs energy. It costs focus. It costs discipline. Followers crave attention because it feels like validation. Leaders don't need validation, they need results. You don't need their permission to lead yourself. Watch any room carefully. The loudest voices rarely have the strongest direction. The calmest presence often does. Why? Because composure signals control, and control earns trust. That's the key. Followers talk to feel involved. Leaders speak to move outcomes. Followers explain themselves. Leaders execute. Followers argue emotionally. Leaders stay measured. You have a choice. Silence is leadership training. It forces patience. It forces restraint. It forces clarity. When you're silent, you stop competing for attention. You start competing with yourself. That's where growth happens. Leadership starts internally. Before you can lead others, you must lead your impulses, your emotions, your reactions. If you can't control your mouth, you can't control direction. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control outcomes. That's the key. Followers wait to be told what to do. Leaders decide what needs to be done, quietly. Followers need permission. Leaders act from principle. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need approval to be calm. You don't need validation to be consistent. You have a choice. Silence also creates authority. Not fake authority, not positional authority, earned authority. People trust those who don't overreact. People follow those who remain steady under pressure. People respect those who don't need to prove themselves. That steadiness is built in silence. Followers rush to respond. Leaders take time to think. Followers speak from emotion. Leaders speak from clarity. Followers want to win the moment. Leaders plan for the outcome. That's the difference. Leadership is lonely sometimes because silence separates you from the noise, from the crowd, from constant reaction. But that separation is necessary. You cannot lead from inside the chaos. You must rise above it. Say this to yourself now. I lead myself through discipline. Again, I lead myself through discipline. Say it when it's uncomfortable. Say it when silence feels heavy. Say it when others react and you don't. Repetition builds identity. Discipline is the leader's language. Consistency is the leader's signal. Silence is the leader's shield. Followers chase motivation. Leaders rely on standards. That's the key. When you stay silent, you avoid unnecessary battles. You conserve energy. You protect focus. Leaders choose their battles. Followers fight everything. You have a choice. Silence also reveals who is ready to follow. Those who need constant noise drift away. Those who value stability stay close. Leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It's about direction. Direction requires calm. Leaders don't dominate conversations. They shape environments. They don't react to every comment. They set tone. They don't chase agreement. They move forward. Think about the leaders you respect most. They don't speak constantly. They don't explain everything. They don't react emotionally. They are measured, intentional, grounded. That's the key. You don't become a leader by title. You become one by behavior, by restraint, by discipline, by silence. And it starts with how you lead yourself. Say it again, slowly. I lead myself through discipline. Let that sentence guide your responses. Let it slow your reactions. Let it shape your decisions. This chapter is about choosing composure over chaos, discipline over impulse, leadership over reaction. You don't need their permission to rise. You don't need applause to lead. You don't need noise to command respect. You have a choice. Silence is not the absence of leadership. It is the foundation of it. And now, everything you've learned comes together. Observation, restraint, calm, strategy, discipline, results, leadership, all anchored in silence. In the final closing, we will lock this in, because knowing is not enough. You must commit, and that commitment begins now. Closing, choose silence, choose power. Silence is not about hiding, it's about mastery. When you speak less, you feel less chaos. When you react less, you gain more control. When you stay silent, your mind becomes steady. From today forward, choose restraint over reaction. Choose calm over chaos. Choose silence over noise. Practice it daily. Repeat it constantly. Live it deliberately. If this audiobook strengthened your mindset, return to it. Replay it. Apply it. Because the disciplined mind is built in silence and revealed through action.